We pause this morning and reflect on our giftedness as disciples of Jesus Christ. And first we listen to the words of Isaiah, so beautiful, so extravagant, spoken to a disheartened people who were longing for joy and for peace, spoken as well to us. You shall be a glorious crown in the hand of the Lord. You shall be called my delight, your land espoused. For the Lord delights in you. As a husband rejoices in his bride, so shall the Lord delight in you. The words of Isaiah, yes, so very beautiful, so extravagant, and so difficult to accept as reality beyond poetry. To believe deep down that we are special to God in all our ordinariness. The waters of baptism into which we have been immersed reveals us as sought after, courted, wedded, proclaims that we are deeply loved by the God who has called us to accompany the Lord, to be with the Lord in the work of God's salvation. This is the good news that we Christians are to bring to life. News of meaning, of comfort, and of joy. And in that second reading, Paul couches God's presence in the power of the Spirit. God is alive in all the diverse gifts that disciples have to offer the world. And what is true of individuals is also true of the different gifts each community of faith has to offer. We don't measure who is the greatest anymore. We don't measure again about, as the Corinthians did, who was first. Rather, individually and in community, we are to understand that we are to use our gifts for the good of all. All are of worth. Where we are, who we are. And this is especially true of the disabled and the disadvantaged. All bring their gifts to this marriage with God in the unfolding of life. I'd like to tell you a story. In our class, we had such a diversity of talent between those who were brilliant and those who were just hanging on, trying to pass, making it be so difficult for them to understand and express the theology that they were taught. And we had one man in our class who all through the seminary was just hanging on by his fingernails. And nobody thought that he would ever become priest, but he did. Long years ago, not too many long years ago, maybe 10 or 12, one of our classmates had a small gathering we had of our class, who himself is a very gifted man, the one who created a good number of the programs in Catholic Charities. He said, listen, you know something? Let's take a look back and see what Jim did. He said, easily, we all know that he was probably the least gifted of all of us. And look what he did. He said he was the court chaplain on the southeast side. And he would climb up all the way up to the top of the ships because the Filipino people who were the works on the ship weren't allowed off the ship. And he would minister to them, bring stamps and write letters for them, talk to them, celebrate Eucharist with them. He said, who of us could have done that? And the rest of us, again, with all the diversity of talents that was there, said, none of us. And this fellow Roger said, yeah, Jim did more than all of us combined. Isn't that a good story? And it's true, because that's the way life is. So God doesn't look at the disparity of gifts. Rather, he sees they're used for the good of all. All bring their gifts to this marriage feast with God. Now, we live in a culture that's competitive and success-oriented. To treasure all in the community, this way of thinking, of being, of acting, of loving, crashes into the individualistic way of life in our world. To the victor belongs the spoils. That's the theme of our world. Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. A wedding feast, so joyous and yet so very ordinary. And in coming to that feast, Jesus reveals the holiness of all of life. Of wedding feasts, of teenagers, of water and wine, of mothers and parties. Of all that is human, Jesus sacramentalizes it all and raises them to God. That's the most profound meaning of the Incarnation. Is that becoming one of us, Jesus affirms the holiness of all of us. The humanity of Jesus makes holy all of life. May our gathering here this morning reconsecrate us and our gifts to glorify God, who so delights in each one of us.